Welcome back to Afternoon Garage. So last time we were working on this Fisker battery module. It's kind of giving me some issues. I had come to the time to weld the battery tabs and found out, well, this one's aluminum, that one's copper, and none of them are going to work with my $300 welder that I bought. So I'm going to have to come up with a different way to stick these batteries back together. One thing to know about this is that there's high current epoxies and that kind of thing out there, maybe cold weld type stuff that actually has silver impregnated in it, and it's highly resistive. It's not very conductive, so that's definitely not going to work here because we have to pass like 60 amps through this whole thing here. So that leads me to go to the store. So I'm going to go pick up a few things and bring them home and see if maybe I can use them. So yeah, I can use some of this brass bar here and this brass square tubing. Probably gonna need some 440 screws to fasten that whole thing together. All right, back from the store. So what I got here was 0.09, so about 1/10 of an inch by 1/4 inch wide brass strip. Looks like it's gonna work. It's real solid. It's real not very pliable. And then I ended up with some rectangle brass tubing. So I think what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna bend these tabs around and put some of this brass in here, maybe kind of use it like a clamp to clamp everything to this terminal here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off these battery tabs here, part of the battery tab, which at one time I intended to weld together. Well, since it's aluminum, that's not going to be happening. Cut these off, get this all smooth here. The same thing with this here. Going to cut this all off, make it flat. Then I'm going to cut this brass strip up in here and drill and tap some holes in there so I don't have any nuts or anything like that. And cut them, 1.5 inches long and kind of fit them inside of there, sandwich the battery tabs underneath the whole thing. That should be good for lots and lots of current. One thing it really won't be very good for is my battery testing technique that I use where, I use these things which go in between the slots and the weld plates here, and well, we're not going to really be able to use anything like that. And if we are, maybe I just have to reposition this thing and get it to where it's not going to be on top of any of these plates we're going to put in because the plates, of course, are going to have screws in it, and it's not going to conduct the best compared to having it sit in there flat. That's a lot to know, and hey, time to get busy. Make it happen. Yeah, we can start by removing this thing here. So I had to cut those battery tabs pretty short. Unfortunately, the way I'm going to bolt these in there now, well, probably not going to be able to use this cell ever again, so we'll throw that away. Okay, now this one's pretty much straightforward. Just have a couple bars on there, on the between, kind of sandwich them together, drill and tap. But this side has a temperature sensor on there, and it has the BMS wire. So I think what I'm going to do, I don't want to leave that there, otherwise I'm going to have just kind of a real short piece here, and that's not going to be good for clamping. So I think I'll cut it off and then epoxy it right there. Need to clean those holes up a little bit. And you just take a big bit, real careful not to drill through it. So these batteries are brand new. This tab looks kind of weird here. So there's no barcode like there is on this one here. I want to make sure the polarity is the same. Plus, on this side, probably going to be a good idea to test them. You know, make sure they're all about the same. If they aren't, what you can do is you can put these together and clamp them together, say overnight, and they'll kind of balance on their own here. But we'll test them now. We got 3.329, 3.328, 3.328. So these are all pretty good. I think I'm going to install them just like it is. And we'll work on bending these tabs over, getting them to fit underneath here. Another thing is there's a lot of drill material here. We want to clean all this off with alcohol really well before we start. I think I'm going to use adhesive like 3M77 on this to kind of glue these things back together again like they were from the factory. So let's bend these tabs, get them on here. One thing to remember, the plus always goes here. You got to remember your polarity. It's really important for each of the batteries. So in this case, this tab's going to be bent this way. When you put this battery on, this tab's going to be bent that way. And cut a little shorter, and then same with this battery is going to, this is the last battery in the pack, and it will also be bent that way. But one important thing to remember about this is we're going to have to bend this. We kind of want to maybe clamp this using a straight edge or something like that. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to take and clamp this with any kind of, like say, a metal straight edge or anything like that. You need to shorten these two tabs out, and this thing will turn into a bomb in your hand. You don't really want that. I set up a wood clamp system here. I'll just bend these tabs up. There you go. They're bent in the right direction. This is the plus side. There we go. It's not perfect, but... And then I recommend drilling them at this point with each cell you put in. Drill each one, put the cover over it, then do the last two. Now this will be a lot more interesting, of course, if these cells were in the middle of this battery pack. You can just imagine the battery would be kind of splayed open. This will be a lot more difficult to do. The fact that it's on the end, well, it gives us a lot more room to be able to work in here, but that's going to work pretty well. That is going to be a little tricky in here because you have to catch each one of these screw holes. So you have 3 batteries, this plate, and that. So that's 5 things to line up all at once. Right after messing around with this thing for a little while, I used an awl here that was bent, and you kind of line up the middle holes, stick it in there, underneath that last one, kind of pull it all together, stick your screws in there, and then we'll have to try to catch the threads. Nice and tight. Measure the mounting hole distance for one to the other. It should be about the same. And that way you know if you have about the same distance, you know that the foam inside of here is compressed about the same from battery to battery. Now that we got this battery repaired here, we can use this load and this charger to match the cells within the module. Make sure it matches what's in the rest of the battery pack. So if you're wondering, how much electricity did it take to do this whole project? Well, meter right on here says we used 415 amp hours. Now I've never unplugged this ever since I started it. So if you can see that and do a little math, you get 5,106 watt hours, so like 5 kilowatts. Multiply that, in my state it's 11 cents a kilowatt hour, multiply that by 11. So this whole project cost me a little over 56 cents. Alright, I got everything back in a case. Got a spot for my load here. One thing I just wanted to mention, I got a 48 volt power supply. It's about 35 amps or so that you can test one module at a time instead of just testing each individual groups of 3 cells. With the 12 volt supply, you can check the entire module with this power supply here. It's a nice little kit, all ready to go for next time. So you can see, I'm all done with the testing. That was a lot of testing. That was about 3 or 4 weeks worth of testing and battery repairs I had to do. You know, it's the first time I ever did anything like that on a car like this. I think everything's gonna work just fine. I'm gonna now put the battery pack together, put all the modules, hook them all together, and stick the battery pack up underneath the car, and then finally take that thing for a test drive, see if I didn't fix the problem. I think I'll have a lot of success here. I don't foresee too many other problems, but hey, if you got something out of this, smash that like button. Please subscribe. I plan on doing lots of different cars in the future.